So at the beginning of the film, we see the main character of the movie, Clara, who when she came to her senses found herself in a strange place with something written on the wall in front of it. This was a threat from a killer, in which it was written that which of you and your husband will be killed. Kilhara knew that this was a serial killer who was also becoming known as Kylinder Killer nowadays. That's why he was terrified. He also heard the killer's voice behind him, but the killer left without harming him. And the scene was cut, and from here now we were shown a man named Julian. Julian used to work for a call center from home. In the call center, those girls used to call who were in danger. Just then a call came in, and the girl told Julian that there were a lot of boys behind her. Julian advised him to come and stand under the street light where people can easily see you, and if there is a poor car parked there, you should put your hand on it. Sound his siren. According to Julian, the girl did exactly that, and as soon as the siren of havoc, all the boys ran away from there because they knew that now the people living here would come out of the houses and the life of this girl was saved from them. As soon as the call was made, Julian says on TV, where we see that the news was going on about the Clinton killer, but he does not pay much attention to it because he has now received the second call. It was the call. As we saw at the beginning of the film, Julian asks Clara, "What can I do to help you?" And Clara replies, "You can't help me because I want to die myself. There is also a calendar killer behind me who kidnapped me from my room and took me to an unknown place and has also threatened to kill me or my husband without coming in front of me, and he has not been the only house of this." During the call, listening to Clara, Julian also checks his house and his daughter. While from here the seal is cut, we are shown an unknown old man who has a picture of the threats of the calendar killer in his hand, and it also seems that maybe this is the killer. Well, now in the scene, the finale itself is shown to Clara, who was walking on the street. This time Clara was in a low state, as if she had run away from a party. Talking to Churin, she said, I'm tired of this life. I want to die." The bird asks, "Step has been said and your husband has been said." In response, Clara told him that I was running away from my husband. Julian didn't understand what he was saying. Then Clara told him that actually today was our wedding anniversary. Julian took me to dinner at a very big restaurant, and we were very happy, but also scared because he gets very angry and he kills me anytime, and if he gives us here in front of everyone, then what was my honor? I also found one of my blacksmiths there, which made his mood worse as soon as he saw it. But it was surprising that Nobody responded, and following dinner, he escorted me to a concealed level via lift. Affluent individuals were engaged in their studies there. It was quite peculiar how they all gathered in close proximity. As soon as we arrived, my husband gave me a drink, and after drinking it, something happened. My body stopped functioning. I was paralyzed, and in that state, my husband, along with all his friends, made fun of me and then tied me to a table. They forcibly abused me, and my husband watched silently because he was being paid for it. Claire recounts that as soon as her condition improved and her body could move, she ran away from there. Hearing this, Julian was mind blown because he knew that in such a state, the girl might commit suicide. He tried to calm Clara down, saying, "Clara, relax. Don't do anything that could harm you." But Clara was not willing to listen. She attached a pipe to her car's silencer, left it inside, and turned on the engine. She knew that soon the car would fill with smoke, and she would suffocate to death. During this time, Julian kept calling, trying to persuade her. "Stop! Exit the vehicle!" he shouted, but Clara disregarded his pleas. In the moments leading up to what could have been her demise, Clara considered her daughter, unwilling to leave her in the care of a man as vile as her spouse. With that thought, she bolted from the car, making it clear to Julian that it wasn't his intervention, but the thought of her daughter that had prompted her action. At the same time, on a different call, we find Julian receiving a message from his father inquiring about his whereabouts. Julian admits he's working remotely but requires assistance. His father consents and upon Julian's request, investigates an address to ensure a young woman's safety. Julian's father sets out only to encounter an individual that matches the description of the person depicted as the calendar killer. Clara had returned home and called Julian again, asking why they endure so much crime. Clara explained that it's because they are not financially independent. Their financial dependence makes them tolerate everything. If they were to separate, these financially secure men would keep the children and they wouldn't be able to take legal action. Julian then shares his story, saying his mentally ill wife had slit her wrist but realized she needed help just as she was about to die. She tried to save herself, but the bathroom lock wouldn't open. At that time, Julian was at work. When he got home, his wife had already died. He felt incredibly sad that day, more for his children who were left alone. Julian explains that since his wife's death, he has been working from home, taking care of the house and the kids by himself. While talking to Clara, he was in the kitchen when he noticed that a knife was missing from his counter. He felt sure that someone must have broken into the house. Placing Clara's call on hold, he went to check the house. He closed it quickly, alarmed, and as she approached the window, she clearly noticed the ominous message. She snapped a photo and forwarded it to Julian. Julian, already wary of trespassers, scattered broken glass at his front door to hurt any unauthorized entrance or to alert him to any intrusions. Let's wait and see. Father also made it to their residence. Upon seeing him, Lara and Clara assumed he might be the culprit, and the director concealed himself. Upon entering, Father noticed the absence of anyone and notified Julian by phone that the girl wasn't there and all was in order. With those words, he departed, while Clara fled towards the woods. Although Julian was constantly in touch with Clara, her signal vanished as soon as she entered the woodland and contact was lost. Clara slipped and rolled onto the road where a passing car noticed her. The driver helped her, picking her up into the car. Clara got scared seeing him. He was in Santa Claus clothes but assured her that he meant no harm and was there to help. He wore the Santa Claus costume because he entertained children at parties. Clara slightly calmed down and her phone's signal returned. She rang Julian and instructed the driver to take her downtown, then updated Julian that she had encountered a kind stranger willing to assist her. Anxious Julian had an intense headache from worrying that Clara's trust in others was too innocent. He cautioned her about the risks of blind trust under such circumstances. She requested a cigarette from the man. He directed her to look in the back seat for it. There, Lara noticed a stun gun, which made her uneasy. The man calmed her nerves, explaining it was for his defense. Relieved, she carried on with her travel and re-engaged in conversation with Julian. Julian received intel that the calendar killers were indeed after her, though her spouse refused to accept it as truth. Julian suspected someone had broken into his abode and resumed his search. Abruptly, Clara halted the vehicle because her spouse had emerged ahead of them. He violently pulled the helpful stranger out and launched into an assault. In anger, Clara clarified to her spouse that the gentleman was merely assisting her. Heeding Clara's intervention, her husband ceased his attack. Clara aided the gentleman back to his seat and recognized, without further inquiry, that her husband's nature was unsavory.